Welcome to Golden Black Live Game Day Edition. We don't get to say that only very often. Third time in Purdue history that they've had a Friday night game in Ross-Ade. Tom Dienhart joins me and want to thank our sponsors. Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. It'll be hopping down there today, tomorrow. A lot of activities on campus, obviously, with not only football tonight. You've got Hall of Fame induction today. You've got volleyball tomorrow night in a sold-out Mackey Arena, and, of course, men's basketball and women's basketball fan day tomorrow. Crazy. But State Farm agent Trent Johnson also. TrentIsMyAgent.com. We appreciate them. Tom, Purdue has the tallest of tasks tonight when they take on the Oregon Ducks, number 2 ranked team in the country. 27.5-point underdog or something like that. One of the largest spreads, not the largest, but one of the largest in Ross-Ade Stadium history. And how does Purdue keep this one interesting into the second half, do you think?
Yeah, real quick. First, I guess the other Friday night home games were Ohio in 17 and last year Wisconsin, right?
That is correct. Oh, yeah, that's right.
I think, you probably need at least 3 main ingredients if you want any shot to shock the world, Alan. I think number 1, if you're Purdue on offense, you've got to shorten the game, as the analysts like to say, right? You got to run the ball, keep it away from Oregon's explosive offense. I've detailed in a notebook I filed this morning, just sort of look at that Oregon offense and where it ranks. I mean, it's awfully explosive, so you got to keep it off the field. And again, you do that by converting third downs. We got better at that last week. Run the football. And don't turn it over. So that's number 1. Control the ball, shorten the game. We saw Vanderbilt do that against Alabama.
Yeah.
Around 42 minutes time of possession for the Commodores. And I think, I always say if you're going to pull off a game like this, an upset like this, you got to have at least one unconventional touchdown. You got to score on defense or special teams. I think that's always needed to do. And we saw Purdue do that last week with Will Helt. Having that scoop and score was a big one for Purdue. So those are a couple of things I think you need for sure. And I think, of course, thirdly of my big 3, Alan, is takeaways. I think you're going to need some help from Oregon. You can, of course, generate some takeaways yourself as a Purdue defense, but Purdue's probably going to need to benefit from 2, 3, maybe 4, turnovers by Oregon. Even having said all that, even if all those things happen, Alan, it's still a very steep hill to climb. But we say this every week. Every Saturday, we're shocked by some outcome, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, and I guess you have to look at one thing that could happen, maybe, is the fact that Oregon is coming off obviously a huge emotional win over Ohio State in a nail biter and then some. And making that trip, I don't know if that makes any difference either. But that's the thing too. You need a lightning bolt. That is clear, and it really everything you say makes perfect sense. But it flies in the face of what Purdue's been doing all year, and that is giving up at least 20 to 30 more plays than the opponent. Those kinds of things are, but we saw a little bit of that certainly in the second half at Illinois. A lot of that, I should say, with Ryan Brown and company. If you're Ryan Brown, you got to be relishing this opportunity on a national stage to make an impact, and he certainly did last week against Illinois.
You're right, Alan. That's one thing that maybe gives Purdue a little bit of hope, right? And there was, let's be frank, there was very little hope going into that Illinois game, coming off the 4 previous games, Notre Dame and Nebraska, and the Wisconsin game as well, and even out at Oregon State. So again, there's that, and we all know if Purdue has any shot at all to even stay in the game, the offense is going to have to click at the level that we saw in Champaign last week. And Ryan Brown certainly provided a spark, Alan. Now the big question looms: was that a mirage? Is that sustainable? Was that a function of Purdue surprising Illinois with a tweak scheme and a different quarterback? Was that a function of Ryan Walters' familiarity with Illinois' defense? So here we go. We're going to get a lot of questions answered, and Purdue's going to get to try to answer them against one of the best teams in America. So again, but having said all that, still, Alan, that offense has to give fans some hope. And I think the teammates like to play for Ryan Brown. He's a fiery personality. And you know what? Now we saw big plays for once this year.
Yeah.
It seems like we saw flat out big pass plays, some big runs too. And Purdue's going to need some big plays if it wants, again, like I said earlier, to have any shot to pull up a stunning upset. Is what about a 4-touchdown underdog, as you said?
And yet we've seen it before.
Yeah.
Purdue was a 20-point underdog. I think it was in the Tyler Trent game in 2018. It can happen, but it's going to have to. Purdue's going to have to hit it on the screws in every angle. One would think to be able to do that. Hudson Card, I know after practice Wednesday, you saw him in full gear. That doesn't guarantee that he will be available tonight by any stretch. But that's a key storyline too, because here's Hudson Card, a guy that Purdue brought in to lead things when Ryan Walters was hired. One of their first moves with Graham Harrell to get Hudson on board as a transfer from Texas. And in defense of Hudson, he's been well liked. He's a leader. He's a guy that maybe a different personality than Ryan Brown, but things have not gone as well as he would like certainly this year. It certainly was at the end of last year. He started to look like he got healthy and looked good. Do you have, who knows? I mean, does Purdue try to do some things with two of them? They're similar in some ways, but Card has not run the ball as much as I think at least it seemed on paper made sense. But and we saw them in the same backfield, of course, in the Wisconsin game for the one play down by the goal line. My point is, what do you see there? Is there a chance that you see Hudson Card tonight?
Yeah, that is a big question, sort of hanging over this game. On Monday, Ryan Walters said Hudson Card has not yet been cleared. Of course, he missed the game last week in concussion protocol. I did see him walking off the field on, I think it was Wednesday night when we were over there in full gear. But like you said, that I don't know that I can't make. We don't want to make assumptions, right? So again, number one, will he be cleared?
Yeah.
Number two, if he's cleared, will he play? And so that's what we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure Oregon's preparing for both Card and Brown. They are pretty similar from a trait wise. And the skill set wise, Alan, they're both good athletes, smart, and again, the biggest difference is probably just the personality. Hudson's an understated guy. He's more vocal. Been described to me as fiery.
Yeah,
has juice, has energy, which is two words that have been used by multiple people. And I think his teammates like him. And again, Jason Simmons, the analyst, was quick to point out this week that, hey, you know what? If we had Hudson execute that game plan that Ryan ran last week in Champaign, he likely would have the same type of success. So no indictment on Hudson Card and his ability to play quarterback. It was just a function of circumstance. And I think I've said this before this week. Maybe Ryan Brown is the best quarterback, or the right quarterback at the right time.
Yeah.
For where Purdue is at this very moment on October 18th. And again, that's no indictment on Hudson Card. Maybe this is the type of a personality they need to pull them out of this rut. So we'll see. It's been fun watching Ryan Brown so far. And like you said, Alan, let's see if first of all, number one, Hudson Card is cleared. Number two, if he is cleared, he plays. I will say this lastly, that it has been intimated that should Card be ready to go, that we may see both quarterbacks for sure. Jason Simmons said that on Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be a storyline to watch. Obviously, a lot of the Ryan Walters regime is in trouble. At least when you're 1-5 in year two and not living up to expectations, or at least hopes, I should say, for this team. Any effect on that? It seemed like the team rallied behind Ryan Brown last week, and maybe also Ryan Walters calling plays with Jason Simmons in the box. But what's your sense of urgency there? I mean, I think I think it's still something that's going to be evaluated at the end of the year. That somebody else bigger than us will make that evaluation of where this direction this program is going. But how do you view that as a sidelight or a storyline to where Purdue football is right now?
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room, right, so to speak. Maybe it's not really an elephant. We're all talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Fans are talking about it. The message boards are ablaze with speculation and conjecture. will Ryan Walters be back in 2025? And we can say it out loud. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
And who knows? Who knows? I mean, we know we've talked before. This is a different era of college football. Stakes are much higher. There's a lot of money involved now. NIL, guys are getting paid. Expectations from fan bases and alumni are through the roof. They want results. They want them now. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, if Purdue does decide to turn the page down, you and I have been around here a long time, and people watching this obviously love Purdue and have been around the university. They know Purdue does not act hastily. That is not in Purdue's DNA or not their modus operandi to fire people after 2 seasons as a coach. So this, I think would be unprecedented if Purdue made
Yeah, it would be
2 years. So that just shows you the tenor of the times, right? That they'd be willing to pull the trigger on this. I guess if you're the boss of the athletic department, you have to say, well, if I bring them back, what happens to ticket sales? How does that impact my NIL donations? How does that impact recruiting? Is my fan base going to be engaged? If I don't bring them back, just pros and cons, right? I'm sure Bobinski, he's a lot smarter than me. And you got to trust he knows what he's doing. And like I said, these last, 6 games are going to be very interesting because, as you know, Alan, the schedule is awfully tough down the stretch.
Well, one thing's for sure, there's worse things in the world than having to go to a college football game in a full stadium on a Friday night and see one of the best teams in the country and one of the best quarterbacks, a team that will, in all likelihood, not only make the college football playoff, but will have a chance to vie for the national championship. It'll be fun to see the Ducks in town and to see what Purdue does. I mean, I think that's I think there's intrigue, and that I think was the net value of the second half of last week. Because could you imagine going into this game after a 48-3 loss, which is kind of what we were headed towards last week at halftime? I think that at least keeps people in the stands, and I think that's a big storyline for Ryan Walters down the road. Is can you keep the fan base engaged enough? You've sold a lot of tickets, not only for tonight, but for Northwestern on November 2nd and Penn State on November 16th. You got to hope fans keep coming and that they stay interested. And that's where number 15, Ryan Brown, at least gives you some hope. I'm not saying he's the whole key to everything, but you got to have interest, right? You got to have something, like you said, that juice that keeps people engaged. And I think that has a chance of happening.
You got to have hope. You got to have hope.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the biggest thing. And, as much as we plotted the offense and its signs of life, Alan, again, the bigger concern is the defense.
Yes, no doubt. We haven't even touched on that yet, and that really is the elephant in the room, is it not?
This is an abomination. Real quick. Purdue is last in the Big Ten in rushing defense, total defense, and scoring defense. I've said before, they're allowing 39 points a game, Alan. If that continues to be the case, that will be the most points Purdue's ever allowed per game in a season on defense. I'm not telling fans nothing they don't see with their own 2 eyes. Missed tackles, big plays allowed. They can't stop the bleeding, and no matter how good your offense is, it's hard to keep digging yourself out of holes if the defense continues to spring a lot of leaks.
Yeah, Oregon's offense as good as it gets as well. Yeah, if you just could have made a couple plays, a lot of late third down conversions last week, Purdue would have been walked out of Memorial Stadium with a win. That's the frustrating thing, not only for the coaching staff, but for all that watch Purdue football. So look for Tom Dienhart's work post-game. It will be a late night. But we'll be burning the midnight oil in Ross-Ade Stadium after the midnight hour because that game starts at 8. It will be over around 11:30. By the time post-game and all that, it will be into October the 19th, not the 18th. But we'll look forward to that. It's a privilege to be able to do what we do, and we'll look forward to that as well. All right, stay tuned because segment 2, Tiffany Grimes, Purdue Deputy Athletic Director, will join us. Obviously, Tiffany oversees football, among other things, and a lot to talk about with Tiffany and in her, I believe it's her third year at Purdue Athletics. And, of course, Chris Peliadot, who outside of Tom Dienhart might be the busiest person in Purdue sports. Of course, Chris handles as an associate athletic director, fan experience. So he's got events today, tonight, tomorrow, and all a part of what you see as a fan in Ross-Ade Stadium, in Mackey Arena, in Holloway Gym, etc. Chris has his fingerprint on that. So we'll look forward to those two interviews as well. Tom, thanks again. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.
News 18 this morning with meteorologist David Seipel.
Every morning, I deliver your local forecast, giving you what you need to know before stepping outside. But before I break down that forecast, I make sure my outfit is accurate with my lapel cast. Some say it's the little details that matter, and I agree.
Wake up weekdays with meteorologist David Seipel and your only local forecast. News 18 this morning. Weather from where you live.
Dive into the new Badiah.
Wouldn't it be great if we could all rest this easy? Well, when it comes to meeting your insurance needs, you can. State Farm agent Trent Johnson is there to get you the coverage you need and the discounts you deserve. Home, car, life, even financial services. It's just part of being there. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Ladies and gentlemen, gold medalist David Badiah will now attempt a XXX 5-second tossback. Can he do it? And it's good! XXX root beer makes thirsted joy.
You're never out of the loop if you have the News 18 app. Download it today for free. The latest breaking news, weather alerts, developing stories, and Lafayette's only local forecast whenever you need it on the WLFI app. News 18 makes it easy for you to stay up to date with our WLFI mobile app, keeping you informed when you're on the go. The News 18 mobile app for news from where you live.
Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. Tiffany Grimes joins us, and Tiffany, as busy a weekend as you're going to have in Purdue sports, I think. Obviously the football game tonight against Oregon. You've got basketball fan day tomorrow, volleyball, Hall of Fame earlier today. Nothing going on in your world, but Tiffany, welcome to the show. I know that this is the highlight, as I always say, of your media career, is doing Gold and Black Live, but we appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be back with you.
Yeah, we appreciate that very much. And obviously, when you have a night like today and trying to keep, you have to be good at multitasking in your role, I'm sure, in terms of trying to stay focused and trying to stay, you oversee as a deputy athletic director really facets in the entire department, but you oversee 3 teams in specific football and women's basketball and softball. But I always ask this question to people that have gotten to your level: what skill set has gotten you, makes you good at what you do and makes you be able to focus it? Is it truly one day at a time, or how do you go from that standpoint?
It's absolutely one day at a time. It's one day at a time. And honestly, it's working in a collaborative fashion. We have a phenomenal team of coaches and administrators within the Purdue Athletics Department, some of the best and brightest in the business. And so it's really refreshing, and it feels great to be at a place where we're all pulling in the same direction. Outside of taking it one day at a time, I think communication is one of the biggest strategies that we try to use. There's no such thing as over communicating for us.
Yeah. And one of the challenges, and obviously one of the sports you deal with is football, and a focus of that not being in the same building, or how much is that? I mean, you get your 10,000 steps in, it's not that far to the Kozic, but how do you work that as your daily touch with that, or how you administrate that program? Not that it's that far away, but it's not in the same building that you were in.
It's not in the same building, but they see me multiple times a day. Our staff, I think the world of them. And I think the best way to help lead and also support is to be present. And so kind of the way my day is structured, Meetings obviously have to take place, but the staff and the student athletes know I'm a phone call away, I'm a text message away. And so if they need anything, I'm up and across the street. In addition to those touch points, I am there every day at practice. This week has been every night at practice.
Yeah.
But then also make it a point to get over there for meetings as well. So they're stuck with me. I am there often. Yes.
When you have and you've had interesting experiences throughout your professional life, you may not have just started at Purdue, but you've got a graduate degree from Purdue, worked at Penn State, and also obviously the NCAA, Georgia Tech, and Alabama. And then that experiences that you've had winning experiences, and what's going on right now with football, you're trying to get traction and get the season turned around. I'm going to ask you first about being at the top of the heap at Alabama and working with Nick Saban. And what skill sets have you drawn on to work with a program that, like you said, is trying to get traction? Had a good week last week, short of winning. They had a good second half especially, but trying to impart that wisdom, that experience to trying to get to help Ryan Walters and company move forward in the best way it can.
Right. Well, the first thing I think is making sure that you're surrounding yourself with really smart people. And first and foremost, Coach Walters is one of the most cerebral individuals I've had the pleasure of working with. His intellectual horsepower, what he did last week at Illinois, I think that says it all. He definitely has the capabilities, and we're more than excited to watch him progress the program forward. I think when we're talking in terms of what skill set do you draw on, honestly, it goes back to the communication. A saying that we have is truth and transparency. And I think when you start there, you can have some really honest conversations about what we're doing well and then what our growth opportunities are. Building doesn't happen overnight, right? We have this beautiful new golf club and golf facility that's going up. Well, for those who are local, they know Cherry Lane has been a detour and filled with new visions of the golf club every single day. And that's taken time, the same way that the construction did in Ross-Ade, the same way that the construction took time with our brand new, beautiful basketball locker rooms, with our brand new dining hall that we just opened. Building takes time. Yeah. And so, again, it's about truth and transparency, having those conversations along the way, but also understanding and not wavering on what our goals and our expectations are for the program, but ensuring that our staff and, more importantly, our student athletes have the support to achieve them. So truth and transparency, grace and patience, but being incredibly steadfast and persistent towards the end goal.
Are you a rah-rah person though when someone suffers a tough loss in any of your sports, or how do you interact? Do you leave them their space and let them get through what they need to deal with? I mean, how do you administrate from that standpoint, just from a personality standpoint? How would you best categorize that from you?
Well, first I think you have to get to know your staff, and you have to get to know your student athletes to understand what they need in that moment. I can definitely be a rah-rah if need be, but I honestly can't waver from the truth and transparency and the belief that I have in the individuals within our programs. And so what I like to do is just consistently remind everybody that there's a blueprint and there's a process. We are building, and building doesn't happen overnight. But by gosh, when that house is finished and it's been done with intentionality and with attention to detail, that's something that's going to last for a really long time. We're not trying to throw something up and hope that it sticks for 3 months. Yeah.
When you look at the wonderful world of social media and its impact not only on coaches, but student athletes and all that, what's your message? Again, you talk about the truth and transparency, and that's very important, but how do you focus, ferret out the noise, but also when you talk to your student athletes in the sports that you deal with and throughout the entire department, what's your message to them in terms of staying focused as they move along and dealing with those distractions, sometimes very difficult things that come up on social media?
Absolutely, Alan. I think that's probably the hardest part for me. Is to see some of the things that have been written about our student athletes. They are someone's son, someone's brother, someone's cousin and someone's friend. And so, I tend to get a little mama bear when I see things like that, because, their parents and their loved ones entrust us to take care of them during their time here at Purdue. And they are 18 to 22-year-old young people they're adults with training wheels on. And it's our responsibility to help them progress into amazing citizens that go out into the world and be successful. And so I think, when we get the luxury and the liberty to turn our TVs on Saturdays and we're watching a game, it's easy to disconnect the performance from the person. And so we do a lot of talking about, we know who they are, they know who they are, and they are more than a game. And win or lose on Saturday, we're still going to show up the next day, and we're going to love them, and we're going to pump them up, and we're going to have them ready for the next week. Now, obviously, the goal is to win, and that's their goal above all. But at the end of the day, they're people, and life is going to ebb and flow. This is a wonderful exercise in how to deal with adversity, and how to keep plugging forward so that you do hit that goal. I'll also say this: we're very blessed to have strong resources within our department. We have a wonderful head of sports psychology, Dr. Andy Walsh. And so, we definitely lean on him, because the mental health and the well-being of our student athletes is one of our top priorities. And sometimes during times like this, his services are a little more necessary, but it's another great way that Purdue shows up and supports their student athletes in their holistic development.
Well said. When you look at, you didn't know you were on a job interview here. I feel like I'm always interviewing. Like, Tiffany, you want to tell me what you was here? But do tell. All right, so tell me in terms of the bright lights of an event, tonight's event, going to be a near sellout or sellout. It doesn't get any bigger, national television. But what makes is that the part that ignites you, or what part of your job is really the thing that says, boy, this keeps me coming back for more? My guess is it's not the bright lights, but you tell me what that is.
It's the student athletes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the student athletes, and it's the preparation Sunday through Thursday. To watch them balance their schedules, to, take rigorous courses at one of the country's most high-profile academic institutions. That makes me very proud. They're very, very successful students first, but then to watch them, compartmentalize that responsibility, step into the weight room, step into the training room, step onto the practice field, and prepare to the best of their abilities. That's what fuels me. That's what makes me incredibly proud, is the work that they put in behind the scenes, that many don't get to see. And I wish that was different. I wish everyone could see what's happening, 6 days out of the week instead of what just occurs on Saturday. But those young men are giving everything, and the coaches are working diligently to put them in the best situation possible so that the score reflects the hard work that they're putting in the rest of the week. I am so proud of these young men, and so proud of the culture that has been built within the football program. I am positive, and I am optimistic, and I am excited about the future. And I'll also say this: I am so appreciative of all the fellow Boilermakers who understand that and who believe in it and who show up week after week and send all of the very kind emails and messages to pump our team up and to pump our staff up. So that doesn't go unnoticed, and it's certainly not unappreciated.
Yeah, and probably an important thing to sustain things in good times and in challenging times. I'm sure that's the case. All right, women's basketball. You probably will have a very short night tonight and be back. I've got a big day in Mackey Arena tomorrow. Katie Gerald's team will be signing autographs. I think it starts at 9, if I'm right. And then or that's where the practice will start. Then they'll have autographs with the men's and women's teams. But talk about Katie's development. Obviously, an extension on her contract. Finished the season strong last year in the postseason. Challenged, struggled some during the year, but give us a little bit of evaluation of what to expect not only from this team, but how you like Katie going about her day to day.
So working with Katie is one of the highlights of my career. And for those who don't know, Katie and I were here as students at Purdue
Yeah.
together. So I'm 2 years older than her,
Yeah.
but I remember going to plenty of games and watching her play. And she was something then, and she's just as ferociously competitive and positive and encouraging as a coach as she was as a player. And so this offseason, the word I would describe to use to describe practices over the past offseason: fun. These girls are having an absolute blast, and they are working hard. And it's awesome to see, a roster full of mini Katie Geralds.
Yeah.
So when I interpret that, I mean fiercely competitive. Going to, work hard, do things the right way, work on their technical skills, high basketball IQ, and developing a high basketball IQ, putting in the extra work in the gym, and having a goal to be the absolute very best. This is the 50th anniversary of women's sports at Purdue, which we'll be celebrating this evening. And when you think about what women's basketball means to this institution and to this state, you couldn't be more proud. The game of women's basketball has absolutely exploded and is getting the attention that it deserves. And we couldn't be more proud to know that the catalyst for the game's growth actually has some roots right here in West Lafayette. So we're ready to keep working, keep supporting Katie, and bring that national prominence back to West Lafayette in women's basketball.
Yeah, WNBA was at the finals. Unbelievable night Wednesday night. Unbelievable drama. Full house. It has become a thing in everywhere, and that obviously is a great thing for athletics as a whole. When you look at the opportunity, obviously Saturday night. Purdue will break a record in terms of attendance with volleyball. And though that may not be a sport you're directly involved with, but you're involved with it as a deputy and certainly respect what goes on there. But again, another celebration of women's athletics at the highest level. And it will be the first time in the history of Mackey Arena, an all-time record in the Big Ten, when Purdue plays Indiana. That's got to be a special night. I know you have to look down the road to about 4 events before you get there, but that's going to be a big one on Saturday night.
We are pumped about volleyball in Mackey. And, I think we have to credit Coach Shondell. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and you don't grow up in the state of Indiana playing volleyball as a kid and not know the Shondell name. Yeah. So to be full circle and have an opportunity to work with Dave has been phenomenal. But the game in Mackey, I think, is a testament to Dave's dedication to more exposure and more growth of the sport, but also for women in sports. And we couldn't be more proud of his dedication to that, like looking outside of just Purdue and thinking about what's good for the game overall. And it doesn't hurt to be in the Big Ten, which is one of the most competitive volleyball conferences, arguably the most competitive volleyball conference in the country. So every night we're going to get their best competition, and we're going to get our opponent's best. So it makes for some very, very exciting competitions.
Yeah, no doubt. And then you got Wisconsin coming in the following Saturday night. And that, just think about this. And NBC Live on television, Purdue would be the first time in the Big Ten that a Big Ten match has been on NBC. And that's quite an accomplishment as well. And my guess is Mackey Arena will be hopping for that one. I think it's going to be fun to see that as well. All right, I have to ask you about the, you've worked with the NCAA, you've worked in compliance, you've worn several different hats in your career. How does all this continue to evolve? I mean, in some ways you look at it and say, with NIL, with transfer portal, we're in some form of chaos, but tell me that we're not, or tell me that we're inching forward to some form of stabilization in the world of college athletics.
Right. Well, there are many unknowns. And so what we've had to get very sound with is patience.
Yeah.
And waiting.
None of us like that.
None of us do, but waiting for things to unfold.
Yeah.
What we take comfort in, again, is we're surrounded by incredibly intelligent people. And so once we do have an understanding and a directive on the new landscape, have no doubt whatsoever, we'll not just be able to, succeed in this new landscape, but we'll be able to thrive. A lot of people have described it as chaotic and, a ball of chaos. But honestly, I think we look at it as an opportunity. It's honestly an opportunity. It could level the playing field in many ways. And we're excited to get to work to make it beneficial and advantageous for Purdue athletics.
All right. Well said. All right. We wish you well this weekend. Get sleep when you can, but enjoy it all. Like I said, if you work in your business and you don't enjoy it, you're in the wrong business. So, and that part is going to be a big deal. Purdue and Oregon tonight. We got fan day for men's and women's basketball tomorrow, and of course volleyball volleyball in Mackey Arena. That's correct. And we didn't even get to softball. We'll hit that next time, but that's also a program that under Coach Maggie that is making some steps in the right direction. And that I know that you're excited about that as well. So we will take a short break and talk to another busy athletics person, Chris Peliadot, who is behind the scenes in fan experience. And then some, and working on what will be I think, historic and/or busiest weekend as I can remember, at least in Friday and Saturday night, and that'll be a lot of fun to do. So stay tuned for that. Tiffany, thanks again. Good luck to you, and we appreciate your time.
Friday nights, where rivalries are born, where you let your school's spirit shine, where legends are created.
Friday nights are for football.
Friday night is for the frenzy.
After you've been to the game, make your final stop with Sports 18 and the Friday Night Frenzy. Find out who has more work to do and whose hard work paid off. The Friday Night Frenzy on News 18. High
Segment
School
3 Golden
football
Black
from
Live,
where you
joined by
live.
Chris Peliadot.
Dive into the new Badaya.
Good driver? We've got a discount for that and a lot more. See State Farm agent Trent Johnson to make sure you get all the discounts you deserve on your car insurance. Saving you money? It's just part of being there. Call or visit Trent today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Ladies and gentlemen, gold medalist David Badaya will now attempt a XXX 5-second tossback. Can he do it? And it's good! XXX root beer makes thirsted joy.
See our community from a different perspective. Visit WLFI.com for our Tower Camera page covering the community in West Lafayette, Delphi, and Rossville. Visit our Tower Camera page today on WLFI.com.
Segment 3, Golden Black Live, joined by Chris Peliadot. And Chris, an athletic director, associate athletic director, but handles fan experience and marketing for Purdue Athletics. And by the time this goes, in the next 30 hours of yours is going to be a whirlwind, starting with tonight's game against Oregon. Purdue takes on the Ducks. Just the third home Friday night game in Ross-Ade Stadium history. But first, welcome, and know full well that this is going to be an exciting time for fans tonight in Ross-Ade.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. We're definitely looking forward to it. Night games are always fun. Friday kind of adds a little extra to it, so we're excited about it.
Well, there's obviously it's a blackout, and we've seen sneak previews, I think, of the helmet. I think those have been authorized and looked at. But tell me, and some special lighting effects, what will fans see that might be slightly different and more exciting for another sellout or close to sellout crowd in Ross-Ade Stadium?
Like you said, I mean, we'll debut a new uniform and helmet this weekend. It's been out there. I think it's been received well. The Purdue script will adorn the helmet, and that has really taken off since basketball introduced that on their jersey. A bit of an homage to the '60s script that they wore, and that's really become a mark that most of our teams use now, and this will be kind of football's debut using it. So we're excited for that. And then just for the night game, yeah, it'll be a good crowd. Should be high energy, and it allows us to do a little bit more with lighting throughout the game. So you'll see that anywhere from pregame to halftime to some of the stuff we'll do during some of the breaks. So it allows us to have a little bit more fun, engage a little different way than we can in a typical day game.
And you ordered up good weather too. It sounds like we're going to have a good night in October. I remember one night game that was a Saturday night game, of course, the famous Tyler Trent game around the same date. I think it was October 20th, freezing cold as it turned out. But but
we got a break that day though, because if you remember, like the pregame weather was absolutely, it was like high winds, like the golf course, like it was really bad. But by kickoff, like all that stuff went away. And it was still cold, but the other elements that we had to deal with pregame went away a kick. So that was one of those magical things that just kind of happened that day.
And it was an interesting situation because you control it is fan experience, and there's so much to that now. And that was a date too. I believe you had to cancel you basically had to batten down the hatches for tailgating too. My point is you got to be fluid in this business. I mean, there are things that can change in a minute, and you have to be able to react to that. Talking about in your career, which has spanned a good period of time at Purdue and at Air Force and other places before that, that's a key thing for you in this role, to be nimble, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, we do the game scripts, so we're planning pretty much everything, obviously, other than the plays themselves, but all the stuff at timeouts and on the video boards and all of those. And I've yet to have a game go perfect, but that's always the goal, right? But the ability to adjust and move things around, because we can't control a lot of things. So if there's an injury or, we don't do anything during injury. So that causes, disruptions in our script, or when we score going into breaks, like that causes some disruption. So the ability to adjust, and I tell our students, that work, and they do the lion's share of executing the stuff on the field, that, hey, we're going to prepare as best we can. And that's the goal. Everybody knows what your role is, what your job is. This is the plan going in, but we know something's going to change. We just don't know what. So the ability to handle that, stay calm, move things around. That's something that we have to deal with every single game, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, whatever it may be. There's always something that comes up that we're not planning for, not expecting. I've done it long enough where we know that it's coming. Some days it's easier to handle than others, but our students largely execute a lot of that for us, and they do a great job staying under control and level-headed. And that's what you got to have. Like, can't get too emotional if something doesn't go right, because you're gonna walk right into something else the next time out, and you got to be ready to go there and make sure you're ready for that situation. So it's fun. It's what we sign up for.
Yeah, I mean, in your career too. I mean, you've seen this continue to evolve. I mean, it gets, and it's almost a case where it's got to get, you've been at Purdue since 2011, but you have to, it's like, it's got to get better next year. I mean, there's something new and different when it comes to that. How do you talk about your planning for this? Because you guys go through planning, promotional plans, et cetera, well in advance of each season, and every team that hosts home events has a promotional plan. But walk us through what that typically looks like, not only for football and basketball, but for any sport.
Yeah, really for any sport, kind of planning for the next season starts really within about a month of that previous season ending. So like our role for our marketing group is, once a regular home season has ended, within about 30 days, we want to do a report on our season from everything from attendance and sales to what promotions we did, what worked well, what didn't, kind of review the year, and then start to put down initial ideas for the next year. And so once we do that, then we'll meet with the coaches or the ops group or the administrator or all of them, and kind of go through there and then start to have initial discussions. And then as we kind of get into the spring, with football and volleyball in particular, we get a little bit more of the meat into the plan. So kind of by spring game, we kind of know what we're doing. for that. But same with basketball. Basketball, we meet in April. Once the season's over. This year, obviously, was fortunate we were delayed a little bit, which we would take that every single year.
Yeah.
But that's the plan, because we want to talk about things as they're fresh, or as fresh as they can be, and have the teams involved in that. And then we'll start to have those plans. And as we get a little bit removed, and before we get schedules in, then we'll get a little bit more specific on changes or additions that we may do for the season. So it's really largely year round. There's some breaks here and there, but our last home game here is November 16th.
Right.
And our plan will be that regardless of if it's a year that we go to a bowl, it doesn't really change. Our plan is to try to have the review and initial thoughts of what we want to do for football before we go away for a Christmas break. And then we'll start to ramp that back up in January, February, with conversations with the team some more. But like I said, every sport's a little different, but that process is in place for every sport that we work with. Go from there, because if you forget about it for 8 months, then you're just kind of scrambling. Our goal is, once we get to the season, our job is largely to execute. There's always going to be changes and tweaks, and we may do something because of a situation or a circumstance that we want to take advantage of. But what we want to have time to do those. If we're planning the season during the season, we don't have time to really spend a whole lot of time taking advantage of things that may fall our way.
You look at, and one thing, TV doesn't make life easy for people that are trying to run events, and basketball is nutty. I mean, it's the way it is, and we all get used to it. We don't know. This year seemed like it was later than ever for both men's and women's basketball, timing and schedules, and that does impact the fact that you've got, I don't know what it is in the men's schedule, three or four Friday night games in Big Ten play. Has to change. It's got to be a little bit different between what you're going to do on a Friday versus a Sunday. How much does that come into play as you do your planning and then you have to make those nimble changes?
Yeah, I mean, we don't put anything in stone. So like with basketball in particular, we'll have a list of things that we want to do, whether it be our T-shirt game or a bobblehead or those types of things. So we'll have the list of what we want. And then when we get the schedule, then we put the puzzle together. So, Friday nights, don't change a whole lot for us on the basketball side. Sundays can, because Sundays will, we look at, what times that game, people are locally, if they're going to church, what their availability is. So the ability to do like a giveaway, maybe we won't do on a Sunday potentially. Like I'll use, for example, we're doing our ring giveaway this year for men's again. Looking at, we've historically kind of done that the first game of the year as a kickoff, but this year, our first regular season game is at 6:00.
Yeah,
and then, so is that the fairest thing to do for some people who may have a challenge to get here early for a 6:00? So we push that back to the next Monday, where it's an 8:00 game. So it levels the playing field, I guess, to some extent, because those giveaways are a little bit limited. But those are all things that we'll look at when the schedule comes out to try to make the most sense and be the most effective with those types of things that we do on a game day.
And I don't know whether you're ready to disclose or whether you've already disclosed this. Is there a bobblehead in the works for men's basketball this year? And if so, if you can share it, what's the plan?
Yeah, so we'll have our bobblehead game. It's the Wisconsin game, I think February 15th, and then we're honoring Caleb Swanigan this year with the bobblehead, and hope to have some of his family back, because we've been fortunate to get the bobblehead recipients back in almost every case, or at least a family member in some cases, and that's the goal again this year, is to reach out to them, but really celebrate the legacy he has here. I mean, he was an unbelievable player for us at the time he was here. So well deserved, and it's just unfortunate that he can't be here with us this year to have his moment back in Mackey.
Yeah, they're based on what happened in the men's season last year and the trip to the Final Four. You've got a whole host of things down the road. You're already celebrating, obviously, but we'll be celebrating for for many years to come, certainly. All right, nothing else going on Saturday. Well, yes, actually a lot. You've got, not only you're going to have a football game that's going to end at around 11:30, you're going to turn right around and have women's basketball and men's basketball fan day, I think starting at 9 o'clock on on Saturday morning. Walk us through a little bit of that, what the plan is, because that is always extremely well attended. And then we'll get to that volleyball game on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, we're always excited about fan day. I think we're blessed with great fans here with all around, but especially Purdue basketball. And so, yes, it'll be a short night for us on Friday night. We'll be back here 7:30, 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Doors will open at 8:30. I think come in and watch the women's team practice starting at 9, and then they'll go to about 9:30 or 10:30. And we'll do autographs 10:45 to 11:45 ish. And I always enjoy that, getting to see the kids meet their heroes, meet the players, and we have unbelievable players here on both programs, men's and women's. Like they're really, really good with the fans, with kids in particular, and they can get their autographs and sneak a picture here or there. But whenever you get the 6-year-olds come in and they see, Will Berg or in past Zach Edey, and just that size, their eyes get, so big, and that never gets old. So it's the first opportunity for our fans to see the teams practice, and then obviously get the chance to meet them. And so, like I said, we'll do the autographs and the mental practice from 12 to 1:30, and all are welcome. And hopefully we get a good crowd as we have in previous years. So a little bit of it's a tight turn for everybody, but we're hopeful that we'll get a good crowd out as we typically do. But everything, it's free for everybody. There'll be some concessions available if people need an early soda or something like that. But otherwise, just a good time to get out and get ready and get excited for the basketball season to come here. They'll start, about 10 days later?
Yeah,
So,
October 30th, right? Oh,
Yeah,
my mercy,
yeah.
it's crazy for the men's exhibition game as well. Braden Smith will be able to tote that, though it's certainly made its rounds. His Dave, I call it the Dave Letterman type beard, but there's always
He's trimmed
personality.
it now a little bit.
I know, that's what I understand, and I haven't been able to practice a little bit, but that's and again, I think the thing that also has to make your job, I suppose it could make it extra tough if you didn't have willing student athletes, but it seems, and at least to the observer, that you've really got some really good people to work with that are open to it. Yes, I know it's a world of NIL now and all that kind of stuff that plays into some of this, but you got to have willing participants for autograph sessions, and you can't get any better than Zach Edey was in terms of signing autographs, and to the very end, you may never find another elite athlete like that again. But talk about that, and this how much that is a big part of really getting that not only that message out, but that experience out for that fan that has that personal experience with a student athlete, a player on either team.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So it's about connection, right? I mean, I believe if you can, especially for the kids, like if you're a fan of a team or a player, as a kid, like you're going to be a fan of that team or player as you get older. I grew up outside of St. Louis, and I'm a diehard Cardinals fan. And that started because I got to go, or I got to, get an autograph at some point. And so we want to be able to share those things. And here at Purdue in this is my 14th season. I'm not just saying it, like I haven't really had an experience with any of our players at any of our teams where they've been, high drama or not want to do something. I don't think anybody would enjoy, sitting down, signing their name for an hour all of the time, but you would never know it. And our players, football, basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, they all do it, and they're all very willing. And you see it because if they were faking it, you'd be able to see it. When they're sitting there on Saturday, and you're not going to see it. They're generally very engaging. They might be a little tired, but their willingness to do it has never been a challenge. And the world of NIL hasn't changed that for us, fortunately. And we hope that stays the case, because I do think our players across our program get it. That our fans are invested, and they truly love these programs and these teams. And so they do everything they can to show their appreciation, and whether it be, Carson Edwards or Rondale Moore or David Blau or, any of those type players, like we've never had issues with them, not being willing to do something, whether it's a fan day or going above and beyond and doing something outside of that. And as you mentioned, Zach was unbelievable. I told him last year at fan day, for what it's worth, I said, what you do after every game is like unprecedented. I've never seen that. And I know our fans appreciate it, but his approach to that was something I'd never seen from anybody. I think it's just a larger example of what our teams generally do. Cause I don't think I've ever seen a player, not be willing to do something for, especially a kid, Yeah. And so that's a testament to them and their character and their parents and their coaches and how they've been brought up.
Yeah, it's an extra testament to a guy that at 21 or 22 years old that can realize that his legacy is cemented no matter what he does. I know that's not what his motivation, but just the fact that he took the time with every one of those young persons that he dealt with. They, again, just like your experience in St. Louis, that means everything from that standpoint. A couple other questions. Just one about how you guys as a department, because it's all about building, I think you won awards from at a national level of building that bond, whether it be visually, whether it be that personal fan experience, the kind of things that we see on the and I'll use the Caleb First Elf promotion on down. It's about building personality, about building connection. Talk about that planning stage, and I'm just curious, is there anybody that's going to be it'll be fun to see, I should say, who will be the next media star at timeout this year. I'm sure you've got something up your sleeve, but there's some personalities on that men's team as well.
Yeah, no, we have fun with it, and there isn't like a driving, plan behind it. We would, in the time I've been here, with some of the personality stuff, going back with, Tommy Luce was probably the first like big one that we had really take off. That idea came from one of our student interns, with doing something there, and we tweaked it and played with it, and Tommy was on board, and getting loose with Tommy Luce was born from there. In terms of Caleb, we'd had the idea, one of our creative guys, Chris Johnson, he kind of started the idea the year before we did it. Right. We didn't think the timing was perfect then with Caleb as a freshman and coming in, so we didn't want to add that to the load. And so over the year a little bit, we did something else that year. And then we brought it back up the next year. We'd always done posters, and that was the initial idea. But the more time we had with that one, it's like, well, this could be fun. And, let's see if Caleb was on board. And I mean, he's a natural, like he's unbelievable, with it. But a lot of it is it comes from brainstorming. We've got great people here, very smart people, creative people. And that kind of stuff is fun to do. And like you said, the whole goal, whether it's the elf stuff or an intro video or a social media video or a graphic, we're really trying to highlight what our teams have accomplished or what our players have done. Because we have a very storied history here across our sports in a lot of ways. Football has unbelievable lineage of players, and basketball has players and obviously we've won more Big Ten championships than anybody else. So there's each program, the women's is the only Big Ten team to win a national championship. So trying to not lose sight of those things, because we have fans that are 6 or 60, in every case. And so their experience is lifelong. So trying to find those abilities to touch on all of those things at various times, that's the goal, and develop, the just that fandom and